You're listening to the Rent Roll Radio Show with Sterling Chapman. Hey, Rent Roll Radio listeners, as always, I'm your host, Sterling Chapman. Today, we are joined by a really cool friend of mine that has helped me a good bit in the business, and I'm super excited to have him on. We have the debt-free doctor himself, Mr. Jeff Anzalone. Did I pronounce that last name right, Jeff?
Anzalone.
Every time I say it, I say it different. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on your show, Sterling. Looking forward to it.
So, Jeff, can you, for our listeners, just tell us a little bit about your background, where you came from, how you got into real estate, and what you're doing these days?
Sure. I'm like you, a Louisiana boy, and wanted to do something in the healthcare field when I was in high school and college. During my little league days and playing football and all that, I noticed all the coaches, the dads that were coaching, they were all dentists. And then all the ones that their dads were physicians, they were never at the games because they were always working or on call. So that kind of, showed me kind of the route to go. So I wound up going to LSU dental school, went to Biloxi for a year. I worked in a hospital, VA hospital, got interested in surgery, went back to did another 3-year residency surgery in LSU. And then when I got out, I was supposed to come back here to Louisiana to join a group. Unfortunately, that deal didn't work out. They actually pulled the offer 2 weeks before I finished. So with having $300,000 in debt, a 2-month-old, and not knowing how to run a business or practice, that was pretty stressful, to say the least. But,
I always wondered how you got the debt-free doctor name. Now I know. Started with $300,000 in debt.
And shoot, that's a drop in the bucket these days. It's some of these cats are getting out and they're 7 figures in debt. I mean, it's crazy. Being from a small town, word spread, and I had a guy reach out to me that was also a dental specialist. He kind of had the same thing happen to him too. And he said, look, I've got a building you can rent from. So I don't have to take out any more loans. You can use my staff. We can kind of share supplies and all that. And I did that for 2 years, and took me under his wing, super helpful, great guy. And during that time period, I also started mowing yards again, like I used to in high school, just to make ends meet. It was, as you can imagine, it was very humbling, but I was the most well-trained yard guy in the country, probably the most educated. But I always wanted to have my own practice, and he knew that going in. So after 2 years, I bought the building that I'm in now, but I didn't have any type of financial guidance or whatever. The only person that I really knew about was, as you mentioned, Dave Ramsey. And we just went through and we were just following his baby steps, save your money for emergency fund, debt snowball, start with the smallest debt, pay it off, move on to the next one. So after about 7 years or so, we had paid off all the debt, all the student loan, and then that first house that we were in. But the thing was, you go every day, and you got this huge goal, and it takes you 7 years to get there. And you would think that once you hit it, it's like, you're on top of the world. And it lasted for 24 hours. It was kind of like, there's got to be more to it than this. It's kind of like, now what? So I just kept, going to work and put money in a 401k, the practice 401k, and actually took a snow skiing accident to kind of, that was my wake up call for passive income and real estate, because we were skiing in Beaver Creek and a kid cut in front of me. And when I fell, I injured my wrist. I bent my wrist back. And that was the very first time, I used to play rec league basketball and stuff, and I had some injuries or whatever. And then after that, playing basketball, if your foot's injured or your knee's injured, the next time you play, you're kind of thinking, you're kind of like, oh, I don't want to overdo it to hurt my knee again. Well, I never had like any injury to affect my work, but when that happened with my wrist, that, I started thinking, well, luckily it wasn't anything major, but if I wouldn't be able to work, how would I provide? Because it was just that one stream of income coming in. So that inevitably led me to start educating myself about, what successful people, what these millionaires do. And after researching it a lot, two facts stood out. First one was over 90% of them had real estate in their portfolio. Back then, we just owned our personal residence. Nothing, rental property or anything like that. And then the second thing is most of these people had many streams of income, and we just had the dental income coming in. So I thought in order to invest in real estate, I had to go find a house, rehab it, hire a contractor, and you're pretty experienced in all that, flipping houses and dealing with that, and get it rented. Whenever they knock a hole in the wall, sheetrock it and all that kind of stuff. That's what I thought, because many of my friends here in Louisiana, they either own property or they run their parents' property, and that's what they do. They're an active investor. Didn't really want to do it because I didn't want to take time away from my practice, and didn't want to take much time away from my family. But it was it wasn't like I'm going to do it to make a bunch of money. I was making a great income. It was more of an insurance policy, having like a backup plan sort of thing.
Yeah.
If things go wrong, if like a pandemic hits or something, who would have thought of that? But I wound up finding a guy that was also used to be a dentist in Dallas that was teaching other dentists about real estate. He was having a meeting. So I said, hey, what better place to learn from than a dentist with a room full of dentists that want to be real estate investors too? Get in my truck, drive over there. And I spent 2 days there, and I didn't learn anything about being an active investor, which was really cool because it really opened my eyes to all the many different ways to invest in real estate passively.
Yeah.
And, there was all kinds of different ways, which eventually led me to investing in what I'm mainly doing now. And that's with syndications, slowly but surely. It's not a get rich quick thing, as you know, but slowly but surely replacing my active income, to kind of give me that insurance, that peace of mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have a few comments on that. I'm very well familiar with the headaches of active investing. And if you ever hear me complain, which if you're around me often enough, you will, it's never about the passive. It's never about the apartment complexes. It's always about the houses.
Yeah.
it's always about the rehabs. It's always about the tenants. That is my pain point. The apartment complexes are beautiful, and my investors love the passive, so we support that. I have two questions about a couple of things you said. I just want to explore these ideas a little bit more with you. The first one is, you said 90% of millionaires, or I don't know if you use the term millionaires, but you said 90% had real estate in their portfolio. And so I've heard this thing two different ways, and I'm curious if you have a response to my question. The first one is, I hear 90% of millionaires were made so through real estate. And the other way I hear it is 90% of millionaires own real estate, which suggests like they bought the real estate after they were millionaires. So is it one way or another, or have you heard both, or do you have an opinion about that?
Well, from kind of what I've read, it's, they have it in their portfolio, whether it's REITs, whether they're active investor, passive investor, that have some sort of rental property income coming in besides their W-2, from what I could tell.
The other question I have from what you said was about in the neighborhood of multiple streams of income. So I've always heard that, right? Successful people have multiple streams of income. Everybody wants multiple streams of income. But I saw a post the other day that I thought was interesting. And it was something along the lines of like, yeah, once people get successful, they establish multiple streams of income to diversify. But in the establishment, the building blocks, they focus. And I really like that concept, because I so often see potential real estate investors or potential entrepreneurs, and all kind of different things. They try like 50 different things, and they I've heard it on Bigger Pockets explained. It's like they start building a bridge to this island, and then they start building a bridge to this island. They start building, and they never like finish the bridge, so they never really get anywhere. And I see that with people all the time. They're like, I'm selling online stuff, socks online. I'm, I'm a real estate investor. I'm a wholesaler. you know what I mean? So do you preach typically more of right out the gate, build as many streams of income as you can, or do you like a focus and go deep and then expand?
I think it just depends on the person and their situation. With most of the people that I deal with, are other physicians, dentists, people that have had to acquire a lot of debt to get their education. Plus, they're starting late in the ball game. I think that we get out and we make enough money to where we can do both. We can pay down our debt aggressively, but yet we can save money to at the same time. If you're disciplined enough, and I know Grant Cardone teaches this. There's somebody else that teaches the same thing too. Their name slips my mind, but they basically both said, do everything you can right when you get out to save up $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
And because there's, when you look on these online forums and you talk to people and they're like, well, hey, I've got $2,000 or I've got $5,000. Where should I put it? I've got a 10% investment, or, it's like, who cares? The difference between $1,000 in interest and 1,200 till you get $100,000. That's when you can really start, getting focused. So that's what I tell them to do, is to, get rid of a lot of that consumer debt, but focus on saving up that $100,000. And then once you got that, then you got something you can work with. But again, it just depends on some people are very risk averse. Some people are not. So I always just kind of tell people what I did, and then they should form their own investment, decisions or philosophy based on their, how they approach debt and how they approach risk.
Awesome. So tell us about some of the projects you're invested passively in.
Right now I'm in 11 deals. Most of them are multifamily. I'm in 2 self-storage deals, getting ready to get into another one in Alabama. I've been looking for mobile home parks and RV parks this year. Still looking. I've got some people that have mentored me in that space. Learned a lot about it. Especially for the mobile home parks, it's like the worse the economy gets, the better those things do, so it's sure. Real good.
And what I love about, and I don't have any investments in them, but conceptually what I love about the idea of self-storage is, one of the things that scares me about multifamily, which I'm, if anybody listening probably knows, I'm all about multifamily, but when you think about like, what are the risks? One of the things that always kind of makes me nervous is like the political risk. Like, what if we turn into New York or California and all of a sudden we get voted out and somebody says we can't raise the rent, or we can't kick people out of property we own, like the political risk that we, well, like with self-storage, I feel like nobody really gets emotional over people's shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not kicking Sally with 3 kids out on the street. You're like, you're kicking her old piano out on the road. So right. I don't think we're in as much risk at having some legislation, like, you know what I'm saying, really limit our capacity with storing excess stuff.
Yeah. And another thing you have to look at with self-storage is, okay, well, people are downsizing a lot, as prices are going up, or just baby boomers are downsizing. Whenever you're moving to college, kids will rent them. Whenever you're moving jobs or whatever, you'll rent these self-storage facilities. And it's a hassle, to pack up all your stuff, put it in there. Well, a lot of these are like month to month leases.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to, if you own self-storage and you're charging, let's say $100 a month, and you want to raise it 10%. Well, that's 10%. That's a lot of money, but it's $10.
Right.
So is somebody gonna, and so if I'm paying $100 and somebody calls me and goes, Jeff, well, we're bumping you up to 110 a month. You think I'm going to take off work,
Right.
go rent a U-Haul, try to find a place that's cheaper, haul that, and no, you're not. So to me, that's like
Sticky.
the ultimate hyper recession resistant asset, cash flowing asset is self-storage for that reason right there.
No, that's good. I agree. I can think about it. And like we've had my dad, throughout my years that I can think of, he's always had some self-storage units, sometimes up to 3 self-storage units for just, a plethora of different reasons, whether it was like, Andy moved out to go to college, but you know what I mean? We didn't ship his stuff to where he was going temporarily, or, Sterling moved here, but he might move there later, or, we downsized this house, but we might be buying a bigger house later, or this is antiques that I inherited from my grandmother that I don't want to necessarily throw away, but there's no room for them in the house. We got 2 storage units right now. It's just like extra supplies, like extra materials we bought for rehab and houses that we didn't have to put anywhere, but we didn't want to throw it away. And it's, you know what I mean? You can just store it for $100 a month. So there's,
and then, a lot of these neighborhoods, they have a lot of these restrictions where you can't, not so much in Louisiana, but, in other places, you can't have like an RV or a camper or a boat, in your driveway, or, in Louisiana, in your front yard or whatever.
Right.
So, a lot of times they'll make
HOA. Yeah.
So you got to use boat and RV storage. So that's just another thing depending on the area.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. So how is it that you work with investors? Because you're a passive investor, but you work with other passive investors to participate. So what does that model look like?
So basically what I do is on my blog and YouTube channel, as I'm learning things, like, for instance, I just did a video, as I was telling you before, about what's going on right now with inflation, interest rates, debt, and how we can use all of that that's going on right now to not only save money, but to make money. So things that I think people in my situation should know, I write about or I talk about on the video. And then what's happened over time is people have been interested in a lot of this stuff. And they said, well, all I'm doing is invest in the stock market. How do I get into some of these real estate deals? Can you ever tell us what you're investing in? So I had enough people ask me that over time that I started what I call my passive investor circle group, which is nothing more than accredited investors that, and IRS states accredited investors, either based on your income or your net worth. You got to make $200,000 a year single, or $300,000 a year married, or you got a net worth of $1 million or more, not including your primary residence. You're termed an accredited investor. So most of these deals that I'm in, well, all the deals that I'm in, you have to be an accredited investor in order to basically to join that. So these accredited investors, I give them access to any deal that I personally invest in throughout the year, whether it's apartment, self-storage, or, or whatever. And that was basically just from them asking for it. So I turned around and gave it to them, which is pretty much the same model what the guy in Dallas was doing, the dentist that I went to back in 2014, which actually I heard now he charges them $8,000 a month just to have access. And it's a year, it's basically $100,000 a year to have access to the people that he works with for deals.
So what is your specific position? Do you have a fund? Are you just a co-GP to these operators? Are you a broker? What are you?
Right now, I typically just partner with them like a co-general partner, but I am in the process of looking into doing my own fund. And the reason is many of these, as many of these general partners, they want to focus on what they do best. And what they do best is they find deals, they underwrite deals, they get financing, they manage them. They're more geared towards property. And they take people like me and other people like you and other people that have this big following of people that want to invest. So what they do is they'll incentivize people if they have a fund. And so, like for instance, if I had a fund, limit somebody out there, if they wanted to invest in XYZ property, well, they could directly go with them. But if they come through my fund first, which that fund invests in that property, they get incentives. They may have a higher preferred return. They may have a little bit more equity on the back end. They may have a minimum, if the minimum investment's 100 grand, they may lower it to 75. So that they're incentivized. And then that way the general partner group can focus on what they do best. And they don't have to worry about trying to find investors and market and all that. So they have, maybe 4 or 5 people with a bunch of accredited investors looking for good people to invest with. So that's the situation that I've been in now.
Awesome. So what type of fund are you looking at starting?
It's basically, it's called a fund of funds, where I'm eventually thinking about having different projects in it. I may have like a self-storage fund, or like a multifamily fund, or a mobile home park fund, things like that. A lot of times, like I said, these sponsors will actually set them up for you, or there's ways that you can go to set it up yourself, and then then go looking for people to invest with.
Awesome. So what have you learned along the way that you would tell somebody just starting out, just getting into your shoes, just out of college, just looking into multifamily? Any mistakes you've made that you would want to warn them about?
Yeah, I one of the first biggest deals that I did, lost 50 grand. that
Oh,
was
wow.
that was a pretty good learning mistake. And
How did that happen?
that was I didn't know anything about investing directly with sponsors. Everything that I was doing back then was online crowdfunding. And you go to some of these crowdfunding sites, like back then it was realtyshares.com,
Yeah.
was the big, that and Patch of Land,
Yeah.
which Joe Fairless was they were sponsoring a lot of his stuff. So I always heard Patch of Land and Realty Shares. So I was putting my trust in a website, and you don't get to know who these people are. So once I lost that money, I realized that I needed to do something different, and I started seeking out people. Now I go meet with them, I go property with them. I just went down to South Louisiana about a month ago. We looked at some self-storage down there. Not only did I get to look at the property, but I get to meet the people that are running it. You kind of get a feel for somebody once you meet them, what the business plan is, kind of look at their morals, their ethic, and there's some people that, that have wanted me to work with them, but you just kind of get a feeling about people that you just kind of don't trust them.
Sure.
So, but you can't do that when you go on a crowdfunding site. It's just, you're looking at property and you're looking at these returns, and you can put anything down on a crowdfunding site. So I would just starting out, I would focus on finding a handful of people, spread out your investments with, not having it all with one group, having it with a few
Sure.
groups. But
Diversified. Yeah.
the sponsors, because you're investing in people,
Sure.
but you think you're investing in property, but you're really investing in people.
It's so crazy how much you're investing in people. So I've learned that lesson in the last few days. Raising for 2 separate deals, and one I have major control over, and the other, is one of those co-sponsor type situations. And the co-sponsor type situation is like, it is being run by somebody with 10x more experience than me. It's a Class A, it's a much better product. You know what I mean? Like, you would think that 10 times out of 10, they would pick that newer, prettier asset with the guy with thousands of units, but over and over and over again, people go, no, I want to invest with with the one that you have total control over, because I know you and I know you have total control over it.
Right.
And I mean, it's cool to hear, but that's very much the case. People are investing in the operator, and they're investing with who they trust, especially passive folks that they don't want to do homework. They don't want to know, they don't want to learn how it works. They just want to know that they can trust somebody who knows how
I
it
mean,
works.
but think about how the whole investment process is what most people do. They go to a financial advisor and, okay, well, here's my money every month. Just invest it for me. They don't even know where it's going. They can't even read a statement. They can't even tell me what they're paying, what the fees they're paying the fund, what the
Yeah.
fees they're paying the advisor. All they do is they look every month and it's like, oh yeah, look, it looks like I've made money this month. And it's like, it's crazy that and when you take a step back and look at it, and Grant Cardone had like this podcast or video or something he did the other day, and literally I hit pause and just kind of started laughing because it just made me realize just how kind of the whole system is set up. Where they put us through. When I say they, it's whoever you think they is. They put us through college. I mean, my son is 17. He's getting ready to be a senior in high school. He's already getting mail from Discover, Visa, MasterCard. He's getting stuff, for student loans. So they're already, attacking our kids, wanting to put them in all this debt. And then, Proverbs 22:7, the borrower is slave to the lender. So they're putting them, they're going to be financial slaves like I was, all through during school. So when you get out, it's like you have to go to work. You have to get a job.
I've paid down debt and had my credit score go down as the result on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
It wows me every time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, they're doing all this. And then so you're like, okay, well, like me, all right, if I wouldn't have done real estate, I would have done what every other, physician and dentist does. I'm going to work for 30, 40 years. I've got this huge debt to pay off. I'm going to work for 30, 40 years. So I'm just going to invest in this stock market thing that I don't understand. I don't know why. I can't tell you why Apple stock goes up or, Google goes down or whatever. It's just like, but I can understand when you buy a piece of property and you fix it, I can understand that, and you raise the rents and it's worth more.
Yeah.
But so yeah, we're put in this system, and it's like, you think about it, we go to school all this time to learn how to make money, and yet we get out, we don't even know what to do with it. So we just blindly hand it over to people. For me, I went to school for 12 years after high school. So I went through all this education, and if I would have just taken 6 months or a year to educate myself on what to do with my money, and really the secret is the taxes, is the tax mitigation.
I got an undergrad in finance from LSU, and I got an MBA from LSU Shreveport with a concentration in finance. And I learned everything I know about finance from YouTube and Bigger Pockets in about 6 months when I was 30.
So Cardone was saying your biggest expense your whole career is going to be your taxes. You're going to pay 7 figures or more in taxes. And if you could educate yourself, we get no education. Okay, and I'm walking out of dental or medical school. I'm about to hit it, start making money. I've got all this education on how to make money, how to make a lot of money. But the more you make, the more taxes you paid. The more you make, all these tax breaks that you would get, student loans, different things, it all phases out because you make too much money. You're too successful. We're not going to give you these tax breaks. So you're paying all this taxes. But so you're caught in the rat race. You're caught in the system where you have to work for 30 or 40 years unless you educate yourself early on, 6 months to a year, on how to pay basically zero taxes. And it's the cost segregation. I have a guy at the college I'm mentoring that plays tennis. He used to play tennis, so we go hit every week. He's going to pharmacy school, and I'm like, well, right now, dude, I'm paying you money to hit with you, but I'm giving you all this education. So as soon as you start making money and you start reaping, you're going to start paying me back, for it.
Yeah.
But I'm telling him all this, and I'm like, look, instead of watching Instagram and stupid YouTube videos, right now is the time to educate yourself, because you're going to get out and you're going to make a boatload of money. You're going to pay a boatload of taxes. And if you understand how the tax system works, how you get into things where they, cost segregation, where you can accelerate your depreciation, where you can do all these things that, like I learned on YouTube and from other people. I got none of that. So you could just get out and just pay zero taxes and make $100,000 a year. You'll be better off doing that than making $500 a year, paying, 300 in taxes and spending everything. So,
Right.
just that. Sorry, I got off on a little rant there, but
I hear you. So what's next for you, Jeff?
I am right now. I'm heavily focused on doing everything I can to replace my dental income, so then I can go to the real estate education full time. And I love doing it. Love writing articles. Love doing the videos. I really love seeing it help change people. The people that I connect with every week on the phone, and I'm sure you're the same way. You provide these people with hope that they thought they were going to have to work for 40 years. And you mean I don't have to work until I'm 70 and, rely on my 401k, and all this stuff. So it's really cool to be able to do that. And that's really what keeps me going, those connections.
Yeah, we're changing lives for sure. I
Absolutely.
mean, the 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 I think about this a lot. I thought about it through the whole process of like rebranding my website and my, the content that I create and all that kind of stuff. And so part of the process is like going through your company mission and like what you really doing to help people and stuff. And and it's insane what we're doing. Teaching people to be financially independent, to not have to work till they're 70. If you can retire 20 years earlier, that's adding 20 years to the end of your life. You think about it. I mean, like we were born to do more than work and pay bills, right? And
Mhm.
if you can create an environment where you can retire 20 years early, I mean, and replace your income with passive income and not go to work every day, 5 days a week, from the time the sun comes up to the time the sun goes down. I mean, it's truly like adding that time to the end of your life,
Mhm.
except for you're kind of young enough to enjoy it, so it's even better than that. But I mean, more time with your family, more time to travel, more, it's very, very impactful in many ways, besides just what you think of when a lot of people look at the topic of money and they're just like, oh, this, greedy Mr. Scrooge who wants to just pile up piles of gold. It's like, well, there's a lot of different, there's like somebody who wants to spend more time with their kids. There's somebody who wants to go start a nonprofit, but, doesn't have time to go, be impactful to society because they're stuck at the grind, just paying their bills.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of good and wholesome things that come out of this, and besides just the media narrative of the evil money bad.
Yep. Absolutely. And you were spot on with that, start nonprofits or volunteering, or just, being able, even if you can't retire, you can cut back from 5 days to 3 days or 2 days a week. Well, that gives you more time to pursue your passions, or if you want to volunteer more at your church, or you want to start a food bank, or you wanted to coach a youth team, or whatever it is that your interests are, you have options. Doing it the old way, the work for 40 years, uh, 40, 50 hours a week, 401k, that doesn't give you many options.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jeff, how can our listeners find out more about you? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can go to the website, debtfreedoctor.com. And I also have a passive income guide I put together for people that are kind of new to this passive income creation. So I've kind of put in there how I started with it, some specific examples that you really don't need as much money as you think to retire. And I've got some specific examples in there. They can go to debtfreedr.com/free guide.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. Before we end, I just have one last segment I want to go through, and it's just our radio round where we ask you 3 questions to help our listeners get to know you a little better. The first question is, what's your favorite book?
Favorite book is what I read every morning when I get up, and it's the Bible.
Awesome. That has been a very common answer on the show.
Yeah, especially when you have
the second most common behind Rich Dad Poor Dad.
And when you have teenagers and you see what they're having to deal with in this world, having something that can really keep you, well, Dad, why are you teaching us that, or why are you saying that? Well, it's written right here, and you can't really say much more about that. So, it is what it is.
Nice. What's your favorite quote?
Probably the one that I gave you earlier, because it was so important to me, because we were in so much debt. It was just like a fog over us with the borrower is slave to the lender. But I also have another one too that I've got up here on my mantle. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it was from Walt Disney. If you can dream it, you can do it. Because I never would have thought that I would have had the ability to potentially retire much easier without having this, being involved with real estate and start thinking about it. Just opens your mind, all the different options that are out there with the different investments and making money. And it's true. If you can dream, if you can just come up with it, it's like, all you need is an idea. And there's, kind of like that book,
Think and Grow Rich.
Right here. Who, Not How.
Yeah.
That has held me back so much. That's what held me back from starting a YouTube channel, because how do I have time to do it? How do I edit it? How do I make the thumbnails? How do I do? And it was like, when you read the book, it's like, you just find a who to do it for you. And there's plenty of who's out there that can do whatever you know. And it goes back to that quote. If you can dream it, if you can think of it, you can find somebody to help you do it.
Absolutely. And what's your favorite thing to do when you're not working?
Spend a lot of time with the kids. We play tennis. My son's a quarterback right now at a high school. So we go out and throw the ball a good bit. It kind of helps keep me in shape some, and work out, just stay active.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining the show. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the help along the way. And I'm sure our listeners are going to love to hear from you as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks for tuning in to the Rent Roll Radio Show, brought to you by Crestworth Capital. We hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please hit the subscribe button and leave us a rating and review. You can also visit us at crestworthcapital.com or rentrollradio.com, or follow us on Facebook at Rent Roll Radio or at Crestworth Capital. If you would like to reach us, feel free to shoot us an email at info@rentrollradio.com or sterling@crestworthcapital.com. We hope you come back next week to join us on some more of our journey. Until then, happy investing.